Hey, what's up, everyone? So this is gonna feel like a vlog back from 2012, 2013. I'm recording this with my webcam and got the Blue Yeti mic doing my audio. So the audio should be fine, but if the video quality is kind of crappy, I do apologize. I had time to do a vlog today, and I felt like doing a vlog, and I haven't put up some content in a few weeks, and just wanted to get something up on the channel so it wasn't completely dead, and I wasn't going missing again. But anyway, I want to talk today about the state of Ubisoft's franchises, more particularly their Tom Clancy franchises. And this generation in particular, I really felt like Ubisoft sort of destroyed the core of the Tom Clancy games. And so what I wanted to sort of discuss is my love for the previous Tom Clancy games and sort of have a discussion, an open discussion with where it went wrong. Some of you may absolutely love the Tom Clancy games that are, that were released this generation and still are being updated and still have content coming over time. And then if you're sort of like me, you sort of feel like, you've been sort of left out. The Tom Clancy games are a shell of what they used to be. And things have definitely radically changed in Ubisoft's attempt to sort of push everything towards the open world, online, monetization efforts that they've been giving. So I want to start off this video by saying, I have no personal issues with anyone who enjoys the current Tom Clancy games. There are even some games that have come out, recently from Ubisoft, the Tom Clancy franchises, that I have enjoyed. I'm not sitting here saying all of them are bad, but when you really look at the games, the franchises that started off and what these games were before versus how they are today, it's really mind-blowing how drastically they've changed, and they don't really feel like the core of what these franchises were really built on, and it's really changed. And so, I want to sort of go through all of their franchises, and we'll talk about Splinter Cell later, which is one that I'm personally really excited about, and kind of go on through there, right? So, let's start off with last generation, in particular, the 7th generation. We had a lot of Tom Clancy games. In fact, I've collected pretty much the majority of Tom Clancy games that have released. I know there's a few other ones that I'm still missing, but I got the core ones here, and so I sort of wanted to discuss, all of them. Let's start off with like the Ghost Recon franchise. We had early on, last generation, Advanced Warfighter, which was really a sort of fast-paced game. I never actually played the original one, but I did play its sequel, Advanced Warfighter 2. And these were games that were really about fast-paced tactical combat, right? And it's kind of fitting because we see the Ghost Recon, just came out with their latest game, Ghost Recon Breakpoint, to just terrible, terrible reviews and really crappy quality. And it's a game that, when you look at it on the surface, gorgeous worlds, really interesting premise, and I sort of like the direction that they were going with, that this was a survival type of game with you, sort of engaging in tactical warfare. It sort of reminded me of that, that what was that movie? Lone Survivor, that movie where, it's about that Mark Wahlberg character, and it's a true story, I think, as well. He had to survive for days in enemy territory against the terrorists that were hunting him down. And I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. They're going to go with that premise, and it's going to be Ghost Recon. I actually did enjoy Ghost Recon Wildlands. But again, when you take a step back and you look at the difference between this and, I even got Future Soldier, I forgot the name of that, Future Soldier, that came out late last generation. I mean, it is such a dramatic change in terms of how these games were before, what these games were built on versus what we got with the new games this generation. As much as I enjoyed my time with Wildlands, it was not in essence a Ghost Recon game. It was really just a military open world game with a focus on co-op. And I played it by myself, single player all the way out. And I did have some fun, going through the world. In fact, I would sit here and say it is my favorite of the Tom Clancy games that released this generation. But then Breakpoint came out, and I was expecting to at least like Breakpoint because I liked Wildlands so much. And Breakpoint, while again a cool premise, the quality just wasn't there, and they're sitting here monetizing everything. It's adopting elements from Assassin's Creed's RPG system that no one asked for. In fact, the whole map system, the way that the world delivers its missions, is very similar to the most recent Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where it's sort of like you have a general direction of where you're supposed to go, but you have to look on your map and really pay attention to clues and then go there. It is not what Ghost Recon was about at all, and it's not, there isn't really a lot of tactics involved in the gameplay anymore. It's very much just a cover shooter, and enemies kind of come at you in a straight line, and you just bink, bink, bink with headshots, like ducks in a row. It's absolutely embarrassing to sort of look at these games and to see where they came from, and the foundation of what they were built on, what people fell in love with them in the first place, and compare with them what they are at the moment, and I don't know of anyone who can sit here and say that they prefer Wildlands and Breakpoint to any of these, even Future Soldier, which was a depart from the typical, Ghost Recon games. This took a more, futuristic technology approach to the franchise, but it still had more tactics to its gameplay than any of the new Ghost Recon games. And it's a little bit embarrassing, I gotta play through the first Advanced Warfighter. This was backwards compatible right now on the Xbox One X. I believe at 60 frames per second you can play this game on, and I think it's 4K as well, although I'm not exactly sure. But these were games that I had a lot of fun with. I did videos, of me playing Future Soldier and doing multiplayer videos and whatnot. You can still watch those on this channel, and that was a really fun game. And you saw, during that gameplay, you saw the tactical combat, you saw stealth and things like that, and there was this sense of a narrative, at least, that maybe not necessarily as groundbreaking or original, it was still present. And although there is a narrative in Breakpoint, and it is, I would say, more, it's more in your face than it was in Wildlands, it is very much fantasy oriented and character driven, it's not really a military type story. It sort of plays off of this fantasy of this world being lost, and it's more akin to a sci-fi, a cheap B-movie sci-fi, than it is of a military tactical story. And it's just sort of a shame, but again, it's not only the Tom Clancy Ghost Recon franchise. Let's move on to Rainbow Six, and here's a really popular game. I never saw this coming, right? Rainbow Six Siege, when it released, its beta and its alpha that I did play on this channel as well, was a very crappy initial first impression. It was a very glitchy game. It didn't work. They were getting rid of the campaign, and the game came out and very much had a lot of these issues. But people stuck with the game. People adopted the different changes in the gameplay, and they really liked the game, and they played with their friends. And now you look at Rainbow Six Siege, and it's one of the most popular games for online multiplayer. A ton of people go in there and play it regularly every single day. I see friends of mine who play the game, multiple days during the week, actively going back to it. And again, not knocking anyone who enjoys the game, but Siege is a shell of what these games were and where these games came from. And I don't look at Siege and think to myself, that's a Rainbow Six game. I think of it as a competitive, cooperative, tactical shooter with an online focus. You play with your friends. It's more of a it's more of like a professional, what would you call it? Like an MLG type of style game where people get together and it's more about the competition and that's it. But it's not a Rainbow Six game at its core. It's not what it feels like, at least, You can break through walls and there's some tactics used and you have to work together and communicate with your team, but the infiltration aspect, although there, is not nearly anywhere on the level that these games were, and people play the games very differently from one another as well, and I don't know, again, when you look at like Rainbow Six, I don't know anyone who can literally say that they prefer Rainbow Six Siege. That they would, if they had the choice between Rainbow Six Siege or the late canceled Rainbow Six Patriots, that you would choose Siege. Like no one would choose Siege over Patriots. If you look at the initial gameplay of Rainbow Six Patriots, it's one of the most like jaw-dropping, most like really just well choreographed demos. It really was a tech demo for the game. And when you look at that game and you look at what could have been the next Rainbow Six game, and it was canceled, and instead we got Rainbow Six Siege, which is not even, it doesn't even remotely take elements from Patriots whatsoever. And Patriots was a successor, a true successor to these two games, through its core, and it was really about creating this shock value and about infiltration, and you're trying to stop, wars from going on. I felt like that game it could have very much been a game that really took its tone and went in a very amazing direction, and it would have shocked, I think, the industry in many ways. I know some people say that it was canceled because of issues with the game's themes, that it was a little bit too violent, a little bit too close to home with its premise, and that it really upset people emotionally what the game was dealing with. And, at the end of the day, it's a video game. It needs to entertain, right? But just because a video game is a video game, just because a video game is interactive, and it has to entertain, doesn't necessarily mean that it can't talk about really, tough subjects. Again, I don't think that video games are exempt from having something like 9/11. Like we've done movies on 9/11, and that was a terrible, terrible event that happened, right? But why video games? Why you can't have a video game that takes that subject and really does it justice? And I think does it even more justice because now you're part of the experience. It could really, really do some breaking things, I think, to the industry and shock some people, and also teach some lessons as well. And I think Patriots could have been a good introduction to games really delving into a very, deep, personal, core subject that was, again, very uncomfortable for a lot of people. But instead what we got was Siege, which is, not even anything remotely close to that. It's not anything remotely close to these games. And I don't want to sit here and say that I don't want progress and I don't want change. I do want progress and I do want change. I want developers to sort of take these franchises and do something radically different with them, but without destroying the core of what these franchises are about. You look at God of War, the reboot on PS4, like what if that was an online battle royale game? If it was just God of War characters, it's battle royale. It's like that's not what God of War is about. What they did with God of War is they said, all right, what is God of War about? What's the core of God of War? Now let's take that and let's make something really different, but at the same time respectful to what those games were, and just bring it to a more modern audience. Why they couldn't do that with Rainbow Six in general is beyond me, and I really felt like if Patriots came out, we would have gotten that, and we were very close to getting that, but unfortunately, due to whatever circumstances, I'm not exactly sure why the game got canceled. Some people tell me it was the actual themes of the game, but I just can't believe that. I can't believe that, that game in particular, people felt too uncomfortable about it enough to cancel the game. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. There has to have been something behind the scenes. Maybe it was too expensive, maybe the development cost was too long, it was too ambitious, whatever the case may have been. We got Siege instead. And it is not, I know how popular Siege is. I know a lot of people play it. I don't mean to offend anybody who does play it. If you like the game, good for you. All right? All I'm saying is, it's a shell of what Rainbow Six was. And I think people who play Siege and play it heavily know that in their heart as well. It's a shell of what Rainbow Six was, and Patriots would have been a much better alternative, and would have, I think in my opinion, really modernized and brought the franchise to new heights, but we did not get that. And now this brings me to my last subject, is about Splinter Cell, which is the only existing Tom Clancy game. I know we have End War and Hawks and all this shit, but those were sort of one-offs that they didn't do anything with. I don't know if they will bring those games back. Maybe they will, all right? this brings me to Splinter Cell, which is my favorite of the Tom Clancy franchises. I am scared for a new Splinter Cell. I very much want one, just as badly as any other Splinter Cell fan, but I am terrified that what they will do with the next Splinter Cell game is another Ghost Recon, another Rainbow Six, another Division-type game. And I think that's why we haven't seen a new Splinter Cell this generation. The reason we haven't seen a new Splinter Cell this generation is because Ubisoft keeps on saying, oh, we just don't know what we want to do with the franchise. I think it's because they're trying to think of a way that they can make it a big open-world budget game like Ghost Recon and well, not Rainbow Six, but The Division. You know, they can make it a big online-centric open-world game, and they just haven't figured it out yet. But I don't want a big online-focused centric game for Splinter Cell. I don't. You know, that's not why I play Splinter Cell. All of these games are single-player, sort of linear games. You know, there's different pathways to get to your objectives here and there, but these are story-driven single-player games. I know that there's multiplayer in Blacklist that you can play, and, you know, there's multiplayer in other elements as well. But again, no one plays Splinter Cell for this big open world online only experience. Like that's not what I think of when I think of Splinter Cell. And I think any other Splinter Cell fan would agree with that. You know, you play Splinter Cell because you love stealth tactical gameplay. You love sneaking your way around. It's a badass game with a great character, and it's about tactical espionage combat. You know, it's sort of a la Metal Gear, but in a more, I guess, realistic type of, you know, world. That is not, you know, when I think of a new Splinter Cell game and I look at all the past Ubisoft games and what Ubisoft has done to their existing franchises, I'm terrified. It's like, do I even want another Splinter Cell game? What if they're going to create a new Splinter Cell game and it's like Breakpoint, where I have this giant open world which is too big, to be honest with you. It's a chore to travel from one side of the island to the other. So I'm going to have this giant open world that I'm going to have to stealth through, and I'm going to have a story that's really shitty and half-assed and put together. And, well, the game's going to look beautiful. That's the only positive thing. You know it's going to look good, but that's not what Splinter Cell is about. And so now I'm sitting here, and it makes me worry for the future of Splinter Cell, the future of Tom Clancy games. Because, you know, you read any of these Tom Clancy books, and the novels are, like, huge, you know? There's so much story and stuff like that. And, yeah, the games are huge. The problem is it's not narrative-focused. It's just really half-assed content. It's chore work. You know, it's side missions. It's endless content. It's RPG mechanics introduced into games that aren't RPGs, you know? I understand the move from Assassin's Creed to make it into an RPG. I thought it was a smart move. The game feels different. I think the game's too fucking big. You know, Odyssey had so much content that after 45 hours, there were still 3 or 4 different islands that I never went to in the game. You know, it's too large. I don't want to sit here and spend 100 to 200 hours in a video game to beat it, unless it's really good, you know, from start to finish. And Assassin's Creed Odyssey was a good game, but it was not like, you know, every single mission in that game, there were some good ones, and then there were some really boring ones, you know? And it's not worth it for me to spend all this time and do all this extra stuff if it's just filled with boring, tedious gameplay. And honestly, that's the majority of games that are coming out from Ubisoft now. It's all about size, you know, quantity over quality. That's not okay. You know, that's not why I play these games. I'm fine with spending $60 and getting a 15-hour story out of, 10-hour story out of, if you want to make it that short. You know, I'm fine with doing that, but it's a really great experience. It's fantastic from start to finish, and it's exactly what I wanted and more, you know? I mean, these games aren't that long, to be honest with you. Conviction, you know, this was a 360 exclusive. It's the shortest in the franchise, I believe. You know, it's 6 hours long, but it's one badass game, I'll tell you that. I loved playing this game. Blacklist was a lot longer, around 15 hours or so. Again, really badass game. Never played Double Agent, actually. But again, you know what's really cool? All these games are backwards compatible and 4K on the Xbox One X, so I do want to go back and play them. And to be honest, I'm waiting for a new Splinter Cell to be announced so I can go through and play all these games in 4K on the X right before the new Splinter Cell comes out. But I'm scared. you know, and it sucks, you know. I don't, not every single game needs to be this large scale open world game that takes hundreds of hours. You know, let Assassin's Creed be Assassin's Creed. I don't want Assassin's Creed RPG mechanics in Ghost Recon. You know, I don't need that, you know. You want to do Rainbow Six, Siege? That's fine. You can make it more online focused if you want, but give me a good single player campaign. Don't destroy the core of what the game was built on. You know, you're gonna make another Splinter Cell game. Again, build it off the foundation of what these franchises were known for and what people loved them for. You know, I just don't know what to think anymore, and it worries me because every single Ubisoft game this generation, every single one, The Division, Rainbow Six, and Ghost Recon, all were online focused. They were all online focused, you know, and not all of them were great. I enjoyed Wildlands. I played it by myself, but that's because I was able to have fun with the gameplay. Breakpoint was just a disaster. Rainbow Six Siege, I played for maybe an hour or two, and I was like, all right, this one isn't for me. I respect that they brought the game back up from it being trash, and it's one of the best, one of the most popular, online games, competitive games on Twitch and all these other streaming platforms. I respect that they did that for the game. Good for you for not giving up. The Division 2 was a really good game, great for its gameplay, but again, these aren't story-based experiences, you know, and it's kind of a shame. I really hope that with this next generation, that Ubisoft looks at a lot of these games, and with the next Rainbow Six, that we do get a more traditional style Rainbow Six game, you know. And if you want to make that, if you want to split off these games into two different games, like for example, if you want to have Siege be existent and then have a different Rainbow Six be single player and have that exist as well, I'm perfectly fine for that. You know, split it off into two different areas. But we need to find a way to come back to the core of what these franchises were built on, because a lot of that was lost. And it's a shame. It shouldn't have been lost like it has been. I just really hope that the next Splinter Cell game that comes out doesn't follow the same road as Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon, because that's not what I want. That's not what I want. I don't think anyone else wants that either. You know, and I'd rather have a really good short game to play that's, again, enjoyable from start to finish, than have this overly drawn out, super long, all this content filled, open world game with an online component at the center of it. You know, that doesn't sound fun to me. That just sounds boring and tedious, and like just chore work. And it shouldn't be that case. When you play a video game, it shouldn't feel like chore work. It should be entertaining. So let me know what you guys think. Those of you who are fans of the Tom Clancy games and Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon, if you played Rainbow Six Siege, if you're really heavily actually into Rainbow Six Siege, I would like to know your opinion on Rainbow Six in general. Because odds are, if you really played Siege a lot, and you probably played these games a lot too. So, I mean, do you feel the same way? There's nothing wrong with liking Siege, you know, but do you feel like, hey, yeah, it's a shell of what Rainbow Six is? It can be fun, that's fine, but do you feel that they need to go back to the core of what these games were built on? Really interested to hear your thoughts. All right, guys, have a good one, and I'll talk with you all later.